Welcome back to Wrecked, a novel by James Kuzno. Chapter 1, The Final Game. It's a hot summer day, and parents sit on the bleachers watching the kids finish the baseball game in front of them. They're cheering, as parents will when they're more focused on conversations with each other than the actual game on the field. Kathy Pedersen finishes laughing at the comments made by her friend June, and then looks around the busy park. Kids are playing. Families are splashing around in the water park area, and the smell of fresh cut grass fills the air as the maintenance workers finish on the adjacent soccer field. Kathy cannot help but to think about what a perfect day it is, and the only thing that would make it better would be having Matt Pedersen there with her. The park is like an oasis for the community, as much of the other public spaces are neglected, and many of the once busy commercial buildings are run down and abandoned, just as 25% of the homes in the neighborhood. Between the importing of more and more goods from China and other overseas sources, online retailers, and then the COVID shutdowns, the unemployment rate has jumped as local businesses have shuttered. With less revenue in the community from businesses and property taxes, the community officials have taken away much of the funding for public safety, recreation, and community resources. This has led to an increased level of gang activity and crime. A real shame, as this was once a vibrant and safe community. Many of the adults in the area benefited from the residential area being well mixed with the close proximity to commercial district for work. The quick commute allowed parents to spend more time at home with the family. It is also a short commute to the base, where many of the town's residents are still living in the area because they work for the Defense Department's Special Operations Facility. Kathy and Matt are looking forward to moving uptown into their forever home with Noah and having another child now that Matt is retiring. The final pitch makes its way over the plate, and that is it for the Hawks. The Hawks' loss marks the final game in the regular season for them. A look of disappointment fills the young faces of the players. Their coach tried to cheer them up with a typical pep talk you would expect from a coach for his 11 and 12-year-old players. Meanwhile, the Eagles cheer in joy even though they had already secured their place in the playoffs this postseason. This win was just another in a league-leading record this season, even without the pitching of 11-year-old Noah Pedersen. He is the leader of the team, but does so with great respect for the teammates he is surrounded with. He has pitched almost every game this past season, and the team would never have made it to the playoffs without his skill and leadership. Sometimes his coach forgets that he is actually the youngest player on the team. Both teams line up to do the post-game handshakes with the opponents. Pleasant words are exchanged between all players, and they shake hands and compliment each other on a game well played. With the final handshake, Noah turns to Dustin, his teammate who pitched the game today, and his best friend. Noah congratulates him on a great game and his awesome pitching. "How is your arm now?" Dustin asks Noah. Noah replies, "Oh, right. I think it's better now." The boys give each other a grin, as Dustin knew Noah was faking the sore arm excuse to not pitch today's game. The fact that Dustin's grandparents are in town, and Noah understood that Dustin would not be picked by the coach to pitch the game. Noah had made up a lame excuse of a sore arm to make the coach put Dustin in so he could play in front of his grandparents. Noah knew that was important to Dustin, as he only sees his grandparents during the holidays and special events as they live so far away. It's not uncommon for Noah to put others on his team before himself and to help other players on and off the field. Actually, it was just Noah's good nature in all areas of his life, with his friends, playing sports, or at school. It also explains why he's one of the most popular kids in the neighborhood. Noah runs over to his mom as she makes her way down the final step of the bleachers. Dustin is only a few steps behind him as he runs to his mother and grandparents. Noah gives his mom a big hug and asks if Dustin and a few of the other kids can come over for popsicles. As Kathy laughs and agrees, Noah yells to his teammates, "Popsicles and Xbox at my house." A group of boys cheer as they all start asking their parents if they can go to Noah's. As Noah lives only a half a block away from the park, and most of the other boys live very close, to each other, a group of 5 gather around Noah as they get ready to go. Noah and the boys are bouncing with energy as they wait for Kathy now that she has started a conversation with Dustin's mom and grandparents. Kathy turns to Noah and says they can all come over for an hour, and then she would drop all the boys off as Dustin needs to go home and get ready for dinner with his mom and grandparents and needs to be home at that time. Noah asks if they can leave ahead of her and meet her at home. Kathy says that's okay as she can see them from the park all the way to the house and gives Noah the keys. Noah had brought his bike, so he grabs it from beside the bleachers and hangs his glove over the handlebar. The boys all start towards Noah's house. A few of the boys slowly ride their bikes, and the others are in a medium jog to keep up with them. Kathy and a few parents are slowly walking towards the sidewalk, watching the kids ahead of them. The boys all stop at the corner as they're about to cross the street at the edge of the park. Noah is in front of the pack, and Ryan lightly hits the back tire of Noah's bike with his front tire, and they all burst out laughing. Brandon asks him, "Did you forget to get brakes with that bike?" Again, the boys all laugh. The laughter all stopped abruptly, as did the conversations of Kathy and the other parents. All attention was drawn to a loud sound of bangs and screeching of car tires. 2 cars go speeding through the intersection side by side, swerving and accelerating. The loud bangs of one of the vehicles backfiring have now caught the attention of everyone still in the park. At that moment, people start to realize that it's not backfiring. The occupants of the vehicles are actually shooting at each other, and people snap to the reality of the vehicles belonging to local gang members. After a moment of shock, the parents start screaming to their children to stay where they are. The kids at this point have dropped to the ground, just like they are taught at school in the event of an active shooter on the school grounds. As quickly as the cars had appeared, they were now gone, and the boys started getting up off the ground. They were all scared and shaking, but that turns to uncontrollable cries and shouting like you've never heard before. The boys can clearly see a pool of blood forming around Noah, and they can see the bullet holes in Noah's back. Several of the parents are already on the phone with 911 as they run toward the boys. Kathy gets close and sees Noah still and bleeding. She is screeching at others to call an ambulance and goes down onto the concrete of the sidewalk, grabbing Noah into her arms. She keeps yelling at him to wake up and stay with her. Coach Jackson comes running from the parking lot with the team's first aid kit. Coach is also a former medic on the local base. He knows as soon as he sees Noah that he is beyond any chance of being helped. But that does not stop him though, and takes Noah from Kathy and starts CPR. Next to him, one of the other mothers is trying to comfort her son, while at the same time trying to help Kathy. The scene is full of chaos, and the coach is all but blocked out the action that's going on around him to be completely focused on the impossible task of trying to revive a pulse from Noah's small body. It seems like everything around him has gone silent and is happening in slow motion. It really has not, but the shock and focus is what allows him to detach from the situation and do what he is trained to do. Police cars start slamming on their brakes around the scene, and officers are getting out of the vehicles. The officers are rushing up to the area where Noah is on the ground, and the coach is still trying to revive him with no success. Parents start surrounding the police, and everyone is trying to tell the officers what is happening. Sergeant Singh raises his voice to get everyone's attention. He takes control with an experienced sense of authority. "Everyone stop! We need to get this information calmly so we can broadcast the information to other units. First off, let's make way for the ambulance, folks," he says loudly. The ambulance pulls up close, and paramedics quickly grab supplies from the back of the unit and rush to relieve Coach Jackson and take over the care. They have several other parents back away who are helping to keep pressure on the several bullet holes in Noah, as directed by the coach. The medics look at each other, and then to Sergeant Singh, shaking their heads. They have silently acknowledged between them that this is now a homicide. Nothing can be done for Noah as he lies there before them, lifeless and in a pool of his own blood. As police officers start gathering details from witnesses and Sergeant Singh has radioed out a full description of the 2 cars involved, Kathy is still in shock and denial, yelling at the top of her lungs, "Do something! Why the hell aren't you doing something?" towards the paramedics. She knows in her heart that he has died, but her mind is not ready to process it. She makes her way back to holding Noah and crying uncontrollably. Officer Josie Kwan arrives on scene and is a longtime friend of Kathy's. She runs to Kathy and kneels down behind her. She reaches around and hugs Kathy from behind and just keeps repeating, "I'm sorry, Kathy. I am so sorry," as she does not know what else to say. She knows that to say it'll be alright is a total fucking lie. She is trained for this situation, but never had to deal with the death of a young child, let alone the son of her best friend. Josie then tells Kathy that she needs to let go of Noah and allow the paramedics and police to take over. Kathy is gently pulled away from Noah, and the paramedics place a white sheet over him. Detectives start arriving, and direct officers to ensure witness statements are taken from everyone there and those over at the park. Sergeant Singh informs the detective that he has already called in for a forensics and the coroner. The lead detective, Stuart McQuaid, has also arrived, but instead of rushing to get information, he just looks around at the scene before him. Children are crying and being held by their parents. Noah's bike lays in the roadway next to where Noah fell. Someone had pushed it just away from Noah as he laid and bled on the sidewalk. The bike had blood all over it, as did the ground under Noah. As he looked at some of the children, he noticed some of the blood spray was visible on the uniforms of the other kids, although they had probably not even noticed that yet in the shock of what has happened before them. He starts ordering some of the officers to back everyone out of the scene area and start putting up a police line. As the forensic van pulls up, 2 investigators get out, and Stuart asks them to get a tent over the body before the news camera shows up. He knows that the news is going to arrive at any moment, and this is going to turn into a media circus. As the mayoral race heats up, so is the pressure on the police to reduce the crime rates. It is a hot political topic, and the police are almost fighting blind. They're expected to work miracles under reduced budgets, reduced numbers of officers, and the anti-police and defund the police movements in the city. As Stuart turns to look towards Kathy, he sees the media van starting to pull up. He yells at officers, "Keep those media vultures back! Don't give them any statements and do not allow them to talk to any of the witnesses before we have gotten through with them." He knows that he can't stop witnesses from speaking to the press, but he is also understanding the importance of not having too much mixed information out in the news cycle. Just as that thought passes, Stuart sees a young man taking video with his cell phone. With the manner of talk coming from this guy, Stuart recognizes that the guy is live streaming from the scene. Stuart goes up to the guy and whispers something quietly in his ear. Nobody could hear what was said, which was intentional, as neither the camera's audio or others pick it up. Whatever Stuart said, though, was effective, as the guy stopped filming and stepped way back from the police ribbon that was now getting in place.